Think about the last time life threw something unexpected at you, maybe a setback at work, a personal disappointment, or even just one of those days where everything feels heavier than it should. Now imagine having a toolkit, not just to survive those moments, but to thrive in them. That's exactly what Stoicism offers. This ancient philosophy, practiced by emperors and slaves alike, isn't about suppressing emotions or gritting your teeth through hardship. It's about cultivating a mindset so resilient, so unshakable, that challenges become opportunities to grow stronger. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king who ruled Rome at its height, put it perfectly: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Today, more than ever, we're bombarded with distractions, pressures, and uncertainties that can leave us feeling scattered or overwhelmed. But what if the chaos of modern life could actually be your training ground? In this video, we're diving into 30 Stoic methods, practical, actionable steps to help you build inner strength like never before. These aren't abstract theories. They're battle-tested techniques used by Stoics for centuries to face adversity with clarity and courage. Whether you're dealing with stress, self-doubt, or just the daily grind, these tools will help you reclaim control and respond to life's challenges with purpose. This isn't about becoming emotionless or detached. It's about learning to navigate life's storms with a steady hand. Picture this: instead of reacting to every setback with frustration or fear, you meet it with calm determination. Instead of feeling drained by things outside your control, you focus your energy where it truly matters. That's the power of Stoicism, and by the end of this video, you'll have a roadmap to make it part of your everyday life. So let's begin this journey together, one step at a time, toward unbreakable inner strength. What truly belongs to you in this world? Not your job title, not your bank account, not even your reputation, because all of those can be taken away in an instant. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus drew a bold line between two categories: things within our control and things beyond it. Your thoughts, your actions, your choices, these are yours to command. Everything else, the weather, traffic, other people's opinions, even whether your boss approves your project, those belong to the realm of chance. Here's why this matters. When you waste energy worrying about what you can't change, you drain the strength you could have used to improve what you can. Picture this: you're stuck in a meeting where a coworker takes credit for your idea. The injustice burns, but here's the fork in the road. You can't control their actions, but you can control whether you seethe silently, confront them with dignity, or redirect your focus to delivering even better work next time. Epictetus put it bluntly: happiness and freedom begin with understanding this basic principle. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. Try this today. Grab a sheet of paper and draw two columns. On one side, list the stressors you're facing right now, maybe a looming deadline or a strained relationship. Now cross out everything that depends on other people, luck, or external circumstances. What's left? Those are your points of power. That's where your energy belongs. Every time you feel overwhelmed, return to this list. Train yourself to ask, is this mine to change? If not, let it go like a leaf down a river. If it is, act without complaint. That's how you turn philosophy into fuel. What if the very thing you fear losing, your job, your health, a loved one, was already gone in your mind? That's the unsettling yet transformative power of negative visualization, a Stoic exercise Seneca called rehearsing misfortune. Far from pessimism, this practice is about stripping away the illusion that comfort and security are permanent. The Stoics called it premeditatio malorum, Latin for the premeditation of evils, and it served as mental armor against life's blows. Here's how it works. Instead of avoiding thoughts of loss or failure, You deliberately imagine them in vivid detail. Picture your car breaking down on the way to an important meeting. Visualize your savings vanishing overnight. Sit with the discomfort of these scenarios, not to dwell in dread, but to uncover something profound. You'd survive. You'd adapt. The Stoics believed that by confronting worst-case scenarios in our minds, we drain them of their power to shock us in reality. Modern mindfulness often teaches us to stay present and avoid what-ifs, but Stoicism takes a different approach. It's not about catastrophizing, it's about inoculation. Think of it like a vaccine. A small, controlled dose of fear strengthens your emotional immune system. Ancient Roman generals used this technique before battle, mentally preparing for defeat so they could fight without paralyzing terror. Today, you might use it before a job interview, imagining rejection so thoroughly that when you walk into the room, anxiety no longer controls you. Consider financial planning. Most people save money hoping for the best. A Stoic saves while also asking, what if the market crashes? That question isn't defeatist, it's strategic. It leads to contingency plans, diversified investments, or even just the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you've prepared. The same applies to relationships. Imagining life without someone you love isn't morbid. It's a reminder to cherish them fully today. So here's a challenge. Pick one thing you're afraid of losing. Your career, your independence, a person who matters deeply. Close your eyes and visualize life without it. Feel the weight of that absence. Then ask yourself, what strengths would I discover? What resources do I have within and around me that I'm underestimating? That's the hidden gift of negative visualization. It doesn't just reveal what you fear, it reveals who you truly are when tested. There's a radical idea at the heart of Stoicism that might change how you see every obstacle in your life: amor fati, the love of fate. This wasn't just about accepting what happens to you, it was about embracing it, even celebrating it. The philosopher Nietzsche later borrowed this concept, but its roots trace back to Marcus Aurelius, who wrote in his private journals, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Imagine that, a Roman emperor facing invasions, plagues, and betrayals, treating each challenge as if it were a gift. History gives us a striking example with the Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus. When Emperor Nero exiled him to a barren island, most would have seen it as a death sentence. But Rufus didn't just endure it, he thrived. He turned that rocky patch of land into a classroom, teaching philosophy to anyone who would listen. The very punishment meant to silence him became a platform to spread his ideas further. That's amor fati in action, not just making peace with your circumstances, but finding the hidden leverage within them. Now think about your own life. When was the last time you hit a wall, a rejection, a failure, a plan that fell apart? Here's the Stoic reframe: that wall isn't blocking your path, it is the path. A job loss forces you to reassess your skills. A broken relationship teaches you what you truly value. Even something as mundane as a delayed flight can become an opportunity to read, to reflect, to practice patience. The key isn't to ignore the sting of setbacks, but to ask, how does this help me grow? What can I build from these broken pieces? Try this today. Pick one recent frustration, a missed opportunity, a criticism that stung, a day when nothing went right. Instead of resisting it, write down 3 ways it might serve you. Maybe that criticism highlights a blind spot you can improve. Maybe the failed project taught you a faster way to fail, so you can pivot sooner. This isn't about toxic positivity. It's about recognizing that resilience isn't something you're born with, it's something you forge by choosing to see obstacles as raw material for strength. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning, the blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything thrown into it. Your challenges aren't exceptions to your journey, they're the very things shaping it. Imagine having daily conversations with the wisest version of yourself, not scrolling through motivational quotes online, but actually sitting down with your own thoughts to examine what worked, what didn't, and how to grow. That's the power of Stoic journaling, a practice immortalized by Marcus Aurelius in Meditations, the personal notebooks never meant for publication. These pages weren't filled with lofty ideals or performative wisdom. They were raw, honest reflections, a Roman emperor holding himself accountable to his own standards. The Stoics called this the evening review. Here's how it worked. At day's end, they'd ask 3 questions. What did I do well? Where did I fall short? How can I improve tomorrow? Simple, yes, but revolutionary in its depth. This wasn't about self-criticism or empty praise. It was about measuring actions against virtues like courage, justice, and self-discipline. Picture Marcus sitting by candlelight writing. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant. I have seen the nature of good and evil, and I know theirs is ignorance. He wasn't venting, he was preparing. Modern gratitude journals often focus on listing positives, and while that's valuable, the Stoic approach adds a crucial layer: constructive self-assessment. Think of it as mental hygiene. Just as you'd brush your teeth to prevent decay, this practice clears away rationalizations and excuses. A business leader might journal about a tough negotiation, acknowledging where they spoke with integrity, but also where fear made them hesitate. A parent might reflect on losing patience with their child, not to wallow in guilt, but to plan a calmer response next time. Here's your prompt to start tonight. What's one decision today that truly aligned with your values? Not the big, dramatic moments, the quiet choices. Maybe you listened instead of interrupting, chose integrity over convenience, or simply paused before reacting in anger. Then go deeper. What made that choice hard? What temptation did you override? That's where the gold is. The Stoics' new self-awareness isn't about judging yourself, it's about understanding your patterns so you can rewrite them. And if you think this sounds time-consuming, consider Seneca's advice. The time you're wasting now is the very time you'll wish you had back when death is near. 5 minutes tonight could be the difference between repeating tomorrow's mistakes or stepping into a stronger version of yourself. Your journal isn't just a notebook, it's the mirror that shows you who you are and who you're becoming. Seeking hardship to weaken hardship, it sounds counterintuitive, but this paradox lies at the heart of Stoic resilience. The ancients called it voluntary discomfort, a deliberate practice of embracing small struggles to inoculate yourself against life's larger ones. Think of it like strength training for the mind. Just as lifting weights tears muscle fibers so they grow back stronger, willingly facing discomfort fortifies your ability to handle what life throws at you. Epictetus, the former slave-turned-philosopher, put it bluntly: if you want to be strong, learn to endure. The path to freedom is paved with self-mastery. The Stoics weren't masochists, they were strategists. Roman senators like Cato the Younger would wear thin robes in winter, sleep on hard floors, and fast for days, not because they had to, but because they chose to. Why? To prove to themselves that comfort was a preference, not a necessity. In modern terms, it's the difference between someone who panics when their phone battery dies and someone who remembers how to navigate without GPS. Voluntary discomfort isn't about suffering for its own sake. It's about reclaiming your autonomy from the fragile illusion that ease equals safety. Today, this philosophy lives in cold showers, digital detoxes, or even just taking the stairs instead of the elevator. These aren't tests of endurance, they're subtle reminders that you're tougher than your cravings. Comfort zones aren't just physical, they're mental. Ever noticed how scrolling social media becomes a reflex when you're bored? That's your brain seeking the path of least resistance. Now imagine replacing just 5 minutes of that scroll with silent reflection. That tiny act of resistance weakens the grip of instant gratification, building the discipline you'll need when real challenges arise. Consider the athlete who trains in weighted gear to feel lighter during the game. Voluntary discomfort works the same way. When you've willingly gone without dinner, a delayed meal at a restaurant becomes an inconvenience, not a crisis. When you've practiced sitting with boredom, waiting in line turns into an opportunity to observe or think. The Stoics called this ascesis disciplined practice, and its power lies in repetition. It's not about one heroic act of deprivation. It's the cumulative effect of daily, small rebellions against laziness and fear. So here's your challenge. Pick one minor discomfort to invite today. Skip the snooze button and rise immediately. Drink your coffee black. Leave your phone in another room for an hour. Notice the initial resistance, the voice that says this is pointless or I deserve the easy way. That's the voice voluntary discomfort silences over time. As Epictetus warned, difficulties show men what they are. In a world obsessed with convenience, choosing occasional hardship isn't just resilience training. It's a declaration that you refuse to be governed by comfort. Standing on a crowded subway or scrolling through endless social media feeds, it's easy to feel like every minor inconvenience is a catastrophe. But Marcus Aurelius had a remedy for this, a mental shift so profound it could dissolve petty worries in an instant. He called it the view from above, a practice of zooming out way out until your problems shrink against the vastness of time and space. Picture Earth from orbit, a fragile blue marble floating in darkness, no borders visible, no noise of arguments or deadlines. From that distance, how significant is your coworker's snide remark or the likes you didn't get on your post? This wasn't just poetic musing, it was neuroscience before its time. Modern research shows that psychological distance, whether through time, space, or perspective, reduces emotional intensity. The Stoics harnessed this instinctively. When Marcus wrote, "Think of the whole universe and how small your share of it is," he wasn't dismissing pain. He was offering a tool to distinguish real crises from passing storms. Imagine applying this to social comparison. That friend's vacation photos spark envy. Zoom out. In 5 years, will it matter who went where? The neighbor's new car feels like a measure of your worth. From space, it's just metal and glass orbiting the sun like everything else. Here's the twist. This perspective doesn't make life feel meaningless, it clarifies what actually does matter. A fight with your partner over chores looks trivial from cosmic distance, but the love beneath it, that's universal. A missed promotion stings, but the integrity you showed in the process. That's timeless. The view from above isn't about detachment. It's about reattachment to what endures. Try this tonight. When a worry hooks you, pause and ask 2 questions. First, if I saw this from a satellite's view, how would it look? Second, will this ripple beyond a year or even a month? You'll start to notice how many of our self-inflicted wounds come from mistaking pebbles for boulders. The Stoics didn't just want us to endure life, they wanted us to see it clearly, so we could stop sweating the small stuff and save our strength for what truly counts. After all, as Marcus reminded himself, the universe is change, life is opinion, and your perspective, that's the one thing no one can take from you. Ancient Stoic philosophers kept skulls on their desks not as macabre decorations, but as daily reminders of a truth we often avoid. Memento Mori, Latin for remember you must die. This wasn't about morbidity, it was about urgency. Picture Seneca writing to a friend, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." 2,000 years later, we still do this, filling our days with distractions while pretending we have endless time. The Stoics flipped this avoidance on its head. They believed that staring death in the face clarifies life's true priorities. Modern culture treats death like a technical glitch, something to delay with diets, creams, and denial. But what if confronting mortality head-on could unlock your most purposeful self? Marcus Aurelius meditated on it every morning. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. That's the paradox. Acknowledging life's brevity doesn't shrink your world, it expands it. When you live as if time is finite because it is, you stop postponing what matters. That difficult conversation, the creative project you've delayed, the kindness you meant to show, death's shadow sharpens their importance. Consider the Japanese concept of yujin, the profound awareness of the universe's beauty precisely because it's fleeting. Cherry blossoms wither, making their bloom more precious. The Stoics applied this to human life. Seneca urged his students to measure time not by years past, but by moments truly lived. Life is long if you know how to use it. Imagine keeping a skull on your desk today. Not literally, but what if you started each morning by asking, if this were my last day, would I spend it this way? Not to incite panic, but to filter out the trivial. Here's the practice. Take 5 minutes tonight to write your own Memento Mori. List 3 things you'd regret not doing if your time were short. Not grand bucket list items, the quiet, meaningful choices. Apologizing to someone you hurt, finally starting that small business idea, telling your parents you appreciate them. Then circle 1 and act on it this week. The Stoics knew death isn't more, but it's the compass that points us toward vitality. As Epictetus put it, death smiles at us all. All we can do is smile back and make our moves count while we still can. Ever notice how quickly frustration can hijack your thoughts? One moment you're calm, the next you're gripping the steering wheel in gridlock, muttering at traffic like it personally offended you. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who turned hardship into wisdom, would call this an unchecked impression, a raw mental reaction before reason steps in. His solution, cognitive distancing, that crucial pause between what happens and how you respond. Imagine your mind as a courtroom. Impressions are like emotional eyewitnesses, passionate but unreliable. Your job isn't to silence them, but to cross-examine their testimony before ruling. Take that traffic jam. Your initial impression shouts, "This is ruining my day." But cognitive distancing asks, is the problem the cars or my story about the cars? The Stoics believed suffering comes not from events, but from our judgments about them. A delayed train is just metal on tracks until you decide it's a personal injustice. Epictetus put it plainly, men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. That's the power of the pause. It's the difference between seeing a flat tire as catastrophe versus a chance to practice patience, or even gratitude you're not stranded somewhere dangerous. Modern psychology backs this ancient tool. Studies show that labeling emotions, "I'm feeling anger about this delay," reduces their intensity by activating the brain's rational centers. The Stoics were pioneers of this mental hack. They describe impressions like weather patterns. You can't stop the storm, but you can choose not to let it flood your inner world. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily, writing reminders like, "Today I shall be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence, but none of these things can injure me." Here's your challenge. Next time irritation flares, a rude email, a cancelled plan frees the moment. Picture your reaction as a physical object. Hold it at arm's length and ask, is this useful? Is it true? You might find that 90% of your stress comes from resisting reality rather than the reality itself. Like watching a play from the balcony instead of the front row, cognitive distancing gives you the perspective to respond instead of react. As Epictetus advised, don't let the force of an impression carry you away. Say to it, hold on a moment, let me see who you are. That moment of space. That's where your power lies. History remembers Cato the Younger, not because he succeeded in stopping Julius Caesar's rise, but because of how he turned his inevitable defeat into a masterclass in Stoic defiance. When Caesar's armies closed in, Cato didn't just surrender or flee, he weaponized his opposition. While others saw a lost cause, he saw a stage to demonstrate unshakable principle. His famous last words weren't about bitterness or regret. They were about proving that even in the face of overwhelming force, a person could choose integrity over survival. This is the essence of the obstacle, is the way a concept Ryan Holiday popularized, but one that traces straight back to Stoic thought. The barrier isn't just something to overcome, it's the raw material for your next evolution. Marcus Aurelius, ruling an empire plagued by war and disease, wrote in his private journal, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That's not poetic optimism, it's tactical wisdom. Think of a river blocked by a boulder. Does it stop? No. It finds a new path, carving deeper channels in the process. Modern careers work the same way. When a promotion falls through, it forces you to hone skills you'd neglected. When an industry collapses, it pushes entrepreneurs toward undiscovered niches. Even Silicon Valley's fail fast mantra echoes Stoicism. Every setback is data, every rejection a redirection. Consider the story of a corporate lawyer who lost her job during a merger. Instead of clinging to her old identity, she used the setback to launch a mediation practice, realizing courtroom battles had drained her while conflict resolution energized her. The layoff wasn't the end of her career, it was the unmasking of a misaligned path. Or take the athlete whose injury ended his playing days but revealed a gift for coaching, shaping future champions with wisdom he'd only gained through his own broken bones. Here's the pivot point. Obstacles don't just test us, they reveal us. A blocked road shows you alternative routes you'd never have explored otherwise. When Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal, he didn't waste energy on outrage. He wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In other words, use the friction to polish your character, not your grudges. So here's your challenge today. Identify one current obstacle, big or small, and ask, how could this be secretly serving me? Is that difficult coworker teaching you patience? Is the stalled project revealing flawed assumptions? Even physical pain can be a signal to rest or rebuild. The Stoics didn't worship hardship, but they respected its role as the ultimate teacher. As Epictetus, who turned the obstacle of slavery into freedom of mind, put it, "Circumstances don't make the man, they show him to himself. Your barriers aren't just in the way, they're lighting the way." Imagine waking up tomorrow to find your bank account emptied, your possessions gone. What would truly be left? Seneca, the wealthy Stoic philosopher who advised Emperor Nero, tested this question through radical exercises he called poverty drills. Once a month, he'd live as if destitute, wearing threadbare clothes, eating plain bread, sleeping on the floor. This wasn't self-punishment, it was liberation. As he wrote to a friend, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition I so feared?'" Modern minimalism echoes this practice. Think of Marie Kondo's decluttering or digital nomads living from a backpack. But the Stoic approach cuts deeper. It's not just about owning fewer things, it's about dismantling the fear of losing them. Picture a CEO who secretly fears bankruptcy despite millions in the bank. Contrast that with a teacher who knows she could thrive in a tiny apartment if needed, who's truly wealthy? Seneca argued that real riches lie in wanting little, because the person unshackled from dependency on luxuries can never be impoverished. Consider tech billionaires who wear the same plain T-shirts daily, or celebrities who practice no-spend months. These aren't quirks, they're modern poverty drills. By periodically stripping away comforts, they prove to themselves that their security isn't tied to external trappings. The Stoics took this further, viewing wealth as a test of character. As Musonius Rufus taught, it's not poverty that causes suffering, but the fear of poverty. That's why Seneca would intentionally sail in leaky boats and dine on peasant food, not to romanticize hardship, but to expose the illusion that money guarantees safety. Here's your challenge. Pick one luxury you rely on: your morning latte, ride sharing instead of transit, premium streaming subscriptions, and let it go for a week. Notice the cravings, then notice something more profound. You'll adapt. That discomfort you feel, that's the sound of your attachment loosening. As Seneca observed, he is richest who is content with the least, for content is the wealth of nature. True abundance isn't about accumulating more. It's about discovering how little you actually need to be free. Musonius Rufus, the Stoic teacher who turned exile into opportunity, had little patience for chasing applause. When students fretted over their reputations, he'd counter with a brutal truth. What does it profit a man if he gains the whole world's praise but loses his own self-respect? 2,000 years before social media, the Stoics already understood the trap of external validation, how the hunger for likes and admiration can hollow out our sense of self. Today, that trap has never been more seductive. We curate personas, track follow accounts, and measure worth by viral moments, all while feeling emptier with each performance. Epictetus framed it with his trademark bluntness. If someone spoke ill of your horse, would you take it personally? Then why distress yourself when others criticize your character? His point wasn't that feedback is worthless, but that strangers' opinions hold no more weight than weather patterns. Imagine two artists. One paints solely for gallery approval, altering her vision with every critique. The other creates first for herself, letting praise or scorn roll off like rain on canvas. Who's truly free? The Stoics argued that contempt for fame isn't about rejecting admiration, it's about refusing to let it dictate your choices. Modern psychology reveals why this is so hard. Our brains are wired to crave social acceptance, a survival holdover from when tribal exclusion meant death. But in a world where algorithms amplify outrage and viral shame can tank careers, that ancient wiring becomes a liability. The Stoic solution: practice what Rufus called the Inner Citadel, a mental fortress where your self-worth is decided by your virtues, not trending hashtags. When Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me, we love ourselves more than others but care more about their opinion than our own," he pinpointed the paradox that drains so much modern energy. Here's the litmus test whose judgment truly matters to you. Not the nameless crowd, but maybe a mentor who knows your flaws yet believes in your growth. Not internet trolls, but the people you'd trust with your darkest struggles. That's the Stoic filter. Next time you feel the pull to perform for applause, whether polishing a resume for prestige or biting your tongue to avoid conflict, pause. Ask, am I acting from integrity or insecurity? As Seneca warned, he who shuns applause must often deserve it, a reminder that the quiet path of principle often outlasts the roar of the crowd. Marcus Aurelius kept a private ritual before meeting anyone, even those he knew would oppose him. He'd pause and silently remind himself, this person believes they're doing right. In a world where we're quick to assume malice, the coworker who snubbed us in the hallway, the stranger who cut in line, this Stoic practice of preemptive kindness flips the script. The emperor called kindness invincible, not because it weakens us, but because it disarms the very conflicts we fear. Modern psychology confirms this. Studies show we consistently overestimate how intentionally others harm us while underestimating their own struggles. That email from your boss that felt harsh, it might have been sent during a sleepless night with a sick child. The friend who forgot your birthday, they could be drowning in deadlines. Take this workplace scenario. Two teammates clash over a failed project. One assumes the other sabotaged it out of jealousy. The other thinks their colleague is incompetent. Now rewrite the story with Marcus' lens. What if both were doing their best with incomplete information? The saboteur was rushing to meet a family emergency and overlooked details. The incompetent one was juggling two roles after layoffs. This isn't about excusing poor performance. It's about recognizing that most people aren't villains in their own narratives. As Marcus wrote, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant. They are so because they cannot tell good from evil. His solution wasn't to condemn them, but to meet their ignorance with compassion. The irony, we often demand this generosity for ourselves. I snapped because I'm stressed, while denying it to others. Cynicism feels shrewd, but it's actually lazy. It takes courage to assume good intent because it means accepting that we might be wrong, that someone's actions weren't about us at all. A hospital nurse shared how this mindset transformed her shifts. Instead of resenting demanding patients, she started asking, what pain might they be hiding? The man yelling about wait times, terrified of bad news. The woman refusing help, humiliated by losing independence. Try this today. Pick one recent friction, a curt message, a cold interaction, and invent 3 harmless reasons behind it. Maybe the barrister who seemed rude is grieving. Maybe the silent colleague is battling anxiety. You don't need to know the truth. The exercise rewires your default settings. As Marcus observed, kindness is invincible, but only when it's sincere, no flattery, no strings attached. Real strength isn't in armor, but in disarming others with genuine goodwill. When you stop expecting wounds, you stop seeing weapons everywhere. Imagine training for a marathon but quitting because you didn't win your first race. Absurd, right? Yet this is exactly how we often approach life's challenges, abandoning effort because we can't guarantee the outcome. The Stoics called this the discipline of action, and it boils down to one radical idea. Virtue lies in showing up, not just in succeeding. Cleans, the philosopher who carried water by night to fund his studies, put it plainly, he who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. Persistence wasn't optional to him, it was the very proof of commitment. Think of your fitness routine. The value isn't in the single workout that transforms your body, it's in the 100th squat when no one's watching, the run completed in rain, the weights lifted despite fatigue. Progress is incremental, but integrity is instant. That's the Stoic mindset applied to daily life. A writer facing rejection slips isn't failing. They're practicing the discipline of action by submitting anyway. A parent patiently teaching a child the same lesson for the 10th time isn't wasting effort, they're embodying commitment, untethered from immediate results. Here's where modern hustle culture gets Stoicism wrong. It glorifies outcomes, virality, promotions, 6-figure launches, while the Stoics prized alignment. Not did this work, but was this done with integrity? When Marcus Aurelius led troops into battle, he knew victory wasn't guaranteed, but his preparation was. That's why he wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." The discipline of action strips away excuses. It asks, what's the right next step, regardless of applause or achievement? Consider Rosa Parks. Her refusal to give up a bus seat wasn't a calculated PR move. It was a quiet act of dignity that happened to ignite a movement. The Stoics would argue her virtue was complete the moment she stayed seated, irrespective of whether history noticed. Contrast this with our modern paralysis, holding back apologies because reconciliation isn't certain, avoiding creative risks unless fame is guaranteed. We've conflated morality with metrics, so here's your challenge. Identify one responsibility you've avoided because the outcome feels uncertain. Maybe it's a difficult conversation you've postponed, a project you've hesitated to start, or even a habit like journaling you quit because you didn't feel results. Now reframe it through Clean's eyes. The value isn't in the ending, but in the doing. Write that email even if it might be ignored. Plant the garden even if frost could come. As Epictetus taught, no great thing is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. If you tell me you desire a fig, I answer that there must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen. Your job isn't to control the harvest, it's to tend the tree. Picture yourself standing at the edge of the ocean, watching waves roll in. Each ripple connects to countless others, an endless dance of push and pull. That's sympatheia, the Stoic concept that everything in the universe is woven together like threads in a vast tapestry. Marcus Aurelius described it as one living being with a single substance and soul. For the Stoics, recognizing this interconnectedness wasn't just philosophy, it was a call to action. When Hierocles, another Stoic thinker, mapped human responsibility through concentric circles starting with self, extending to family, community, and finally all humanity, he wasn't drawing abstract lines. He was sketching a blueprint for how to live. Fast forward to today, and this ancient idea feels urgently modern. Climate change, pandemics, economic inequality, they all reveal how tightly our fates are linked. The coffee farmer in Colombia, the factory worker in Vietnam, the parent choosing products at a supermarket, each decision sends ripples across those invisible circles. Modern environmental ethics echo this Stoic wisdom. When a forest burns on one continent, the air we all breathe changes. When oceans fill with plastic, it's not their problem, it's ours. The Stoics would argue that sympatheia isn't about noble self-sacrifice, it's about recognizing that harming the collective ultimately harms ourselves. Consider how this plays out in daily life. That plastic wrapper you toss without thinking, it might choke a sea turtle or break down into microplastics that end up in your own water supply. The extra minute you take to thank a service worker, that acknowledgement reinforces their dignity, and by extension, the dignity of all labor. Hierarchical circles remind us that ethics aren't binary, they're radial. You don't have to choose between self-care and global activism. Strengthening your inner circle health, relationships, local community equips you to impact wider spheres. Here's the challenge. Pick one action today that honors sympatheia. Maybe it's researching the supply chain behind your favorite product or volunteering time to a neighborhood cleanup. Even something as simple as pausing before a purchase to ask, who made this? What resources were used? The Stoics believed wisdom wasn't just knowing we're connected, it's acting like it. As Marcus wrote, what benefits the hive benefits the bee. Your choices, however small, are drops in that vast ocean, and ripples travel farther than we can see. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, often illustrated his lessons with simple gestures. When a student rambled incessantly, he'd hold up his hand and say, "The reason we have 2 ears and 1 mouth is so we can listen twice as much as we speak." That wasn't just clever wordplay, it was a radical challenge to the culture of his time, and it's even more vital today. We live in an age of endless chatter, social media rants, podcasts blaring opinions, meetings that could have been emails. But the Stoics saw silence not as empty space but as fertile ground for wisdom. Seneca put it bluntly, "While you're debating what to say, others have already judged your silence." Think about the last time words got you into trouble, a text sent in anger, an interruption that derailed a conversation, a promise made too quickly. Now recall moments when silence served you better, the pause that let someone feel heard, the restraint that diffused an argument, the quiet observation that revealed what words couldn't. The power gap between those experiences is where Stoic strength lies. In ancient Rome, senators practiced silentium before speaking, a deliberate pause to ensure their words carried weight. Today, we might call it thinking before tweeting. Consider negotiations. Amateurs rush to fill every silence with concessions or chatter. Experts know the person who speaks least often controls the room. A tech CEO shared how this transformed her leadership. After adopting Stoic silence in meetings, she noticed her team proposing bolder ideas. Why? Her quiet presence signaled safety instead of judgment. Or take conflict resolution. The parent who counts to 10 before responding to a tantrum isn't just avoiding escalation, they're modeling emotional sovereignty. Even in creativity, silence plays a role. Beethoven took long walks without pen or paper, trusting the space between notes as much as the notes themselves. Here's the paradox. In a world screaming for attention, stillness becomes superpower. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire from the eye of the storm by writing. Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? Apply that to your next conversation. Instead of rehearsing your reply while someone speaks, try true listening, not just to their words, but to the fears or hopes beneath them. Notice how often we speak to impress rather than connect. As Epictetus warned, if you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in extraneous matters. Your challenge today: pick one interaction, a work call, a family dinner, and consciously invert the usual ratio. Speak half as much as you normally would. Observe what shifts. You might discover that silence isn't passive, it's the space where understanding grows. After all, the Stoics didn't preach silence to mute us, they honed it to amplify what truly matters. Seneca once wrote a letter to his friend Lucilius with a challenge that would sound radical today. Set aside a certain number of days to live on the bare necessities, then ask yourself if you were really deprived. This wasn't about frugality for its own sake. It was a surgical strike on the lie that more always equals better. The Stoics called this the art of subtraction, and it turns modern consumer culture on its head. While advertisers scream, "Add this to your life," Seneca whispered back, "What if you removed instead? Think of your mind like a crowded room. Every non-essential, the unused gym membership you keep, just in case, the stack of unread books bought for appearances, the grudges you rehearse but never resolve, takes up space." Not physical space, but something far more precious: attention. Ancient Stoics didn't declutter their homes because minimalism was trendy. They did it because every possession they released was one less thing that could possess them. When Seneca advised, "We must give up many things to which we are addicted," he wasn't just talking about objects. He meant the mental junk, the compulsive scrolling, the people-pleasing, the endless pursuit of next that leaves us exhausted yet unsatisfied. Consider two travelers. One lugs an overstuffed backpack uphill, convinced each item is vital. The other carries only what serves the journey. Who moves faster? Who enjoys the view? That's the Stoic metaphor for life. Modern research confirms this. Princeton neuroscientists found physical clutter reduces focus by competing for neural resources. But subtraction isn't just about empty shelves. It's about creating room for what matters. A tech CEO who deleted all non-essential apps reported regaining 2 hours daily. A teacher who quit a draining committee rediscovered her passion for lesson planning. Even nature follows this law. Forests grow stronger after fires clear dead wood. Here's your challenge today. Pick one subtraction, not a dramatic purge, but a single intentional removal. Maybe it's muting a toxic social media account without announcing it. Turning off one non-essential notification, saying no to an event you'd only attend out of obligation. As you do, ask Seneca's question, what have I actually lost? You might find, as he did, that life improves by removing, not because things are bad, but because every unnecessary weight left behind makes the essential things shine brighter. Epicurus, the philosopher often wrongly accused of preaching indulgence, actually taught something far more radical. No pleasure is evil in itself, but what produces certain pleasures brings troubles many times greater. The Stoics took this further, not by rejecting joy, but by mastering it. Their approach to pleasure wasn't about deprivation, it was about freedom. Picture savoring a glass of wine without needing the whole bottle, or enjoying a slice of cake without obsessing over the next. That's the Stoic balance, enjoy without clinging. Musonius Rufus put it bluntly, how can someone rule others if they can't rule their own stomach? Think about your relationship with pleasure like holding sand. Clench your fist too tightly and it spills through your fingers. Hold it with an open palm and it stays. Modern culture pushes us toward extremes, either guilt-ridden binges or joyless restrictions. The Stoics offered a third way, conscious appreciation. A gourmet meal becomes more satisfying when you're present for each bite, not distracted by screens or racing thoughts. A weekend off feels richer when you're not already dreading Monday. Even something as simple as sunlight on your skin can shift from background noise to a moment of gratitude when you stop taking it for granted. Here's the litmus test. What pleasure controls you more than you control it? Maybe it's the reflex to check your phone during lulls, the just one more episode that steals sleep, or the shopping spree that temporarily numbs stress. The Stoics didn't demonize these experiences, they exposed their hidden costs. Seneca noted how gluttons don't truly taste their food, they're too busy chasing the next bite. Apply that to streaming binges or social media scrolling. How much of the activity is actual enjoyment, and how much is just autopilot craving? Consider the ancient practice of delayed gratification, not as self-punishment, but as a way to heighten appreciation. The Stoics would fast not to suffer, but to rediscover the miracle of bread. They'd abstain from wine to remember water's crispness. Modern science confirms this. Intermittent fasting sharpens taste buds, and digital detoxes restore focus. Pleasure isn't the enemy, addiction to pleasure is. Try this today. Pick one habitual pleasure, coffee, scrolling, dessert, and engage with it mindfully. Sip slowly, noticing the warmth and aroma. Set a timer for your screen time and stick to it. Eat the cookie without guilt, but stop at one. The goal isn't to eliminate joy, it's to reclaim sovereignty over it. As Epictetus observed, freedom isn't achieved by satisfying desire, but by destroying it. Not destruction as in eradication, destruction of its power to enslave you. That's temperance, not saying no to life's sweetness, but finally tasting it fully. Anger hits like a summer storm, fast, hot, and blinding. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher who served as advisor to the volatile Emperor Nero, knew this better than most. He called anger temporary madness, a fire that burns brightest in the moment but leaves only ashes in its wake. Picture this. You're driving home after a long day when another car swerves into your lane, missing your bumper by inches. Your chest tightens, hands grip the wheel, and before you know it, you're shouting curses they'll never hear. That surge isn't just emotion, it's physiology. Adrenaline floods your system, narrowing your vision to tunnel focus, preparing you for battle. But here's what Seneca understood. Between that spark and your reaction, there's a sliver of space, and in that space lies your power. His remedy was deceptively simple: pause and count to 10, not to suppress the feeling, but to let the chemical wave pass. Modern neuroscience confirms this ancient wisdom. Studies show that the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, takes about 6 seconds to reset after a threat trigger. Those 6 seconds are the difference between flipping someone off and taking a deep breath. Seneca wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay. Not denial, not explosion, just enough time for reason to catch up with reflex." Consider two versions of the same road rage scenario. In the first, the driver leans on the horn, tails the offender, and escalates the conflict, risking an accident or worse. In the Stoic version, they count silently, noticing the heat in their face, the racing pulse, and asking, "What will this solve?" Maybe the other driver made an honest mistake. Maybe they're rushing to a hospital, or maybe they're just careless, but does your anger improve their driving? As Marcus Aurelius noted, how much more harmful are the consequences of anger than the causes of it? The pause isn't passivity, it's precision. A surgeon doesn't operate in a rage, and neither should you handle your life with frayed nerves. Seneca's challenge cuts deeper than traffic. Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it. That co-worker who takes credit for your idea. The relative who pushes your buttons, the slow cashier testing your patience, each is an invitation to practice the pause. Try this today. When irritation flares, freeze the moment like a photograph. Name what you're feeling, this is anger, and watch it like a cloud passing overhead, not yours to keep, just to observe. Then ask Seneca's question, what's the wise response here? Not the impulsive one, not the dramatic one, the one you'd admire in someone you respect. Anger can signal injustice, but it's a terrible strategist. The Stoics didn't eliminate fire, they learned to wield it without getting burned. The Stoics had a secret weapon for navigating life's toughest moments, not a mantra or a meditation, but a person. Not a real one, but an imagined ideal they called the sage, a flawless embodiment of wisdom, courage, and self-mastery. Think of this figure as your inner compass, the wisest version of yourself you can conceive. Epictetus, the philosopher who transformed his enslavement into a masterclass on freedom, put it plainly: set before yourself the example of great men and women, not to envy them, but to dissolve your excuses. This wasn't about unrealistic perfection. It was about having a living standard to measure your choices against. Modern culture gives us endless role models, athletes, celebrities, influencers, but the Stoic sage differs in one crucial way. They're not admired for external achievements, but for unshakable character. Imagine two people facing a layoff. One rages against management, obsesses over unfairness, and spirals into self-pity. The other acknowledges the pain, then asks, "What's within my control? How can I use this to grow?" The second response channels the sage, not because it's effortless, but because it's deliberate. Marcus Aurelius modeled this daily, writing notes to himself like, "When you wake up, immediately ask, what would the fully awake version of me do today?" Here's where this practice gets practical. Your sage isn't a distant historical figure. They're your future self at their best, stuck in a heated argument. Pause and ask, how would my wisest self respond? Tempted to procrastinate? Picture your most disciplined version already doing the work. A CEO client shared how this reframed her leadership. Before tough decisions, she'd literally visualize a calmer, more courageous alter ego sitting beside her. "It's not about being someone else," she said. "It's about accessing the strength I already have but forget to use." The sage also exposes our contradictions. We claim to value patience, then honk at traffic. We preach integrity, then gossip about co-workers. Epictetus called this gap the lecture hall versus the wrestling ring, where theory meets reality. That's why the sage isn't just a mirror to admire. They're a coach who whispers, "You know better, now do better." Ancient students would literally role play as their sage during debates, adopting their posture and speech. Today, you might channel yours before a presentation or difficult conversation. Try this today. Pick one upcoming challenge, a conflict, a temptation, a creative block, and script how your sage would handle it. Not with superhuman stoicism, but with clarity and principle. Then step into that role, even imperfectly. As Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." The sage cuts through the noise, reminding you that the strength you seek is already yours, waiting to be practiced. Cato the Younger stood at the height of Roman political power, yet famously wore the same threadbare cloak in winter and summer alike. When crowds cheered his name, he'd whisper to himself, "They'd jeer just as loudly if I were led to execution." This wasn't false modesty. It was a radical detachment from the intoxication of status. The Stoics saw ego not as confidence but as a prison, one built brick by brick from others' opinions. Centuries later, Marcus Aurelius would scribble in his private journal, "How quickly fame fades into oblivion, and how meaningless the applause of strangers." Consider the modern celebrity who crashes under the weight of their own persona. The actor whose tantrums make headlines, the athlete whose arrogance erodes team trust. Their downfall rarely stems from lack of talent, but from believing their own myth. Contrast this with figures like physicist Richard Feynman, who turned down prestigious awards saying, "The prize is the pleasure of finding the thing out." That stoic indifference in action. Recognition might come, but it doesn't steer the ship. Ego disguises itself as strength when it's actually fragility in armor. The manager who can't admit mistakes because it might undermine authority isn't leading, they're performing. The artist who rejects feedback isn't protecting their vision, they're freezing it in amber. Seneca warned, "No one is laughable who can laugh at themselves." Humility, to the Stoics, wasn't self-denial, it was the ultimate power move. By refusing to let praise or blame define you, you reclaim the only arena that matters, your character. Here's the litmus test. Where does your ego flinch? Is it when someone corrects you in a meeting, when a friend succeeds where you've struggled? Those twinges aren't weaknesses to ignore, they're compass needles pointing to growth zones. A tech founder shared how embracing death to ego transformed his company. After a junior intern spotted a flaw in his code, instead of dismissing it, he publicly thanked her and revised the system. That act didn't diminish his authority, it cemented his team's trust and sparked a culture of radical honesty. Marcus Aurelius ruled the known world, yet woke each morning reminding himself, "You're just a little soul carrying a corpse." Not to demean himself, but to remember that titles are costumes and power is temporary. Your turn. Pick one area where ego whispers lies, maybe the need to always be right, or the fear of appearing inexperienced, and starve it for a week. Speak your "I don't knows" freely. Celebrate others' wins without comparing. Watch how lightness replaces the weight of performance. As Epictetus put it, "If you wish to rise, begin by descending." The ground isn't beneath you, it's where you plant your feet to jump higher. Seneca once wrote a letter that stings with urgency even 2,000 years later. You are living as if destined to live forever. Your own frailty never occurs to you. That piercing observation cuts to the heart of modern anxiety. We're so busy catastrophizing about tomorrow or ruminating on yesterday that we miss the only time we ever truly have. This breath, this step, this conversation happening right now. Stoic presence isn't passive acceptance, it's active engagement with reality as it unfolds. Picture a parent at the playground, physically present but mentally drafting emails until their child's laughter pierces the fog. That split-second decision to put down the phone and truly see the moment the way sunlight catches in their hair, the unfiltered joy in their eyes isn't just sentimentality. It's philosophy in motion. The ancient Stoics understood something neuroscience now confirms. Anxiety lives in the imagined future, depression in the dissected past, but peace flourishes in the now. Marcus Aurelius described it as being like the rocky headland against which the waves constantly break. The rock doesn't obsess over the last wave or dread the next one. It simply meets each surge with grounded presence. Modern mindfulness practices often borrow this insight, but Stoicism adds a crucial dimension. Presence isn't just about awareness, but about right action within each moment. When you're fully here, you spot opportunities distraction would obscure. That pause in a heated argument where you choose patience over retaliation. That stoic presence, the split-second decision to savor your morning coffee instead of gulping it while scrolling, that's philosophy made practical. Consider the parent who transforms bath time from a chore into a ritual. Instead of rushing through it while mentally reviewing tomorrow's to-do list, they notice the warmth of water on tiny fingers, the wonder in their child's questions about soap bubbles, the quiet intimacy of ordinary care. This isn't just being present, it's recognizing that these fleeting moments are the actual fabric of life, not intervals between important events. Seneca warned, "We are always getting ready to live but never living," as if existence were a dress rehearsal for some future performance that never comes. The bills will always need paying, the inbox will never stay empty, but your child's 5th birthday or your friend's vulnerable confession, these are the non-renewable moments we'll crave when time runs short. Here's the challenge. Pick one mundane moment today: peeling an orange, tying your shoes, waiting at a crosswalk, and meet it with full attention. Notice the texture, the temperature, the play of light. When your mind drifts to worries or plans, gently return like a boat correcting its course. No grand gestures needed, as Epictetus taught. No great thing is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. Presence grows through these micro moments of returning. Ask yourself tonight, where did I truly show up today? Not perfectly, but intentionally. The answer might surprise you. It's often in the quietest moments that stoic strength speaks loudest. Gratitude is often treated like a seasonal spice pulled out for holidays or special occasions, then shelved until the next celebration. But the Stoics saw it as daily bread, a fundamental nourishment for the soul. Epictetus, the philosopher who found freedom while enslaved, put it bluntly: "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." Notice he didn't say feels grateful, he said rejoices. That's the difference between passive appreciation and active discipline. Modern gratitude practices often focus on big-ticket items: health, family, career. The Stoics went smaller, much smaller: a warm cloak in winter, a sip of clean water, the ability to stand without pain. These weren't just niceties, they were lifelines in a world without antibiotics or central heating. When Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love," he wasn't crafting a greeting card sentiment. He was training his mind to spot abundance where others saw only lack. Here's where it gets radical. Stoic gratitude isn't about ignoring life's hardships. It's about holding both realities at once: the thorns and the roses. Imagine a soldier writing home from battle, describing both the terror of combat and the unexpected beauty of stars seen through a trench. That dual vision is what makes this practice so powerful. A nurse who worked through the pandemic described how this mindset sustained her. After 12-hour shifts in full PPE, I'd lie on my apartment floor and list 3 mundane things: the cold tile on my back, the hum of the fridge, the fact that my fingers could still bend. It didn't erase the exhaustion, but it anchored me to something solid. Try this tonight before sleep. Name 3 utterly ordinary things you'd miss if they vanished tomorrow. Not your home the way sunlight patterns dance on your wall at dawn. Not your family, the particular crinkle at the corner of your mother's eye when she laughs. Epictetus called this seeing with beginner's eyes, and it's the antidote to life's greatest thief, habituation. We stop marveling at working limbs until they fail, at clean water until the well runs dry. Discipline doesn't mean forcing positivity, it means refusing to let familiarity blind you to the miracles hiding in plain sight. The challenge isn't to manufacture gratitude when everything shines, but to uncover it when nothing seems to. A single raindrop on a parched tongue, a stranger's nod on a lonely day, the quiet between 2 heartbeats. These are the uncelebrated gifts the Stoics taught us to honor, not because life is perfect, but because even in its fractures, light gets in. You've booked the perfect vacation flights, hotels, an itinerary packed with bucket list experiences. Then, a storm grounds all planes. Your reaction in that moment reveals more about your philosophy than any Instagram caption ever could. The Stoics called this mental preparation the reserve clause, adding 2 quiet but transformative words to every plan, fate permitting. Cicero, the Roman statesman who brought Greek philosophy to Rome, put it plainly: the flexible tree bends in the storm while the rigid oak snaps. That's the essence of the reserve clause, not passive resignation, but active adaptability. Picture 2 travelers stranded at the same airport. One rages against the airline staff, replaying lost expenses in their mind, their body tense with frustration. The other pulls out a book, texts loved ones they'll be delayed, and starts researching local attractions near the airport. Both face identical circumstances, but only one recognizes a truth the Stoics hammered home. Planning isn't about controlling outcomes, it's about preparing responses. Marcus Aurelius would write his daily to-do lists with this mindset, knowing invasions or illnesses could upend them at any moment. His ambition wasn't the problem, his attachment to fixed results was. Modern life clings to illusions of certainty, career ladders, retirement timelines, even weather apps treated as gospel. But the reserve clause asks a liberating question. What if you poured equal creativity into adapting as you do into planning? A tech entrepreneur shared how this reframed her biggest failure. When her app launch crashed due to a server outage, instead of spiraling, she used the downtime to personally chat with early users, building loyalty that later fueled her comeback. The outage wasn't in the plan, but the relationships it created became her competitive edge. Here's the practice. Next time you set a goal, whether it's finishing a project by Friday or running a marathon, whisper fate permitting at the end. Not as a jinx, but as a reminder that your worth isn't tied to outcomes. Train for the race, but if injury strikes, redirect that discipline toward physical therapy. Prep the presentation, but if the meeting gets cancelled, use those slides to create a shareable document. The reserve clause isn't about lowering standards, it's about elevating resilience. As Seneca wrote, fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling. Your plans are the map, but flexibility is the compass that keeps you moving when the terrain shifts. Imagine scrolling through social media when a stranger tears into your post with personal insults, your pulse spikes. Fingers hover over the keyboard, ready to fire back. Now picture Marcus Aurelius whispering in your ear. When another blames you or hates you, step into their soul. That's Stoic patience in action, not passive surrender, but strategic empathy. The emperor who faced daily betrayals wrote, The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Turning the other cheek isn't about weakness. It's about refusing to let someone else's chaos dictate your character. Take a viral Twitter feud between two academics. One misinterprets the other's research, launching a thread mocking their intelligence. The targeted professor could have escalated, exposing flaws in the critic's work, dragging followers into the fray. Instead, they replied with 3 disarming words: interesting perspective, clarify. The attacker, expecting fuel for outrage, found only open curiosity. Within hours, the conversation shifted from performative outrage to genuine dialogue. That's the alchemy of patience. It transforms conflict's chemistry. Modern psychology validates this ancient wisdom. Studies show insults trigger the same neural pathways as physical threats, flooding us with cortisol. But the Stoics recognized something profound. Between provocation and response lies a choice. A traffic cop shared how this mindset saved lives when an enraged driver screamed obscenities during a ticket. She maintained calm eye contact and said, "Sir, I'd be upset too." Her refusal to mirror his anger diffused what could have become a violent encounter. Patience here wasn't passivity, it was tactical de-escalation. Marcus Aurelius faced far graver provocations: senators plotting his overthrow, generals undermining his authority. Yet his journal reveals no rants about vengeance, only reminders like, "You've endured worse from your own family. This person harms themselves more than they harm you." That reframe is revolutionary. Every time you absorb an insult without returning it, you're not losing face, you're demonstrating that your peace isn't theirs to take. Try this next time criticism stings. Pause and dissect it like a Stoic scientist. Is there truth to refine? If so, grow. If not, release it like a leaf in the wind. As Epictetus advised, if someone hands you anger and you refuse it, who does it belong to? Your patience isn't a shield for others' bad behavior, it's armor for your own soul. Marcus Aurelius often pictured his mind as an impenetrable fortress, a place no external chaos could breach. He called it the Inner Citadel, and in his private writings, he described retreating there when the weight of empire threatened to crush him. Nowhere can a person find a more peaceful and untroubled retreat than in their own soul. This wasn't escapism, it was the ultimate act of sovereignty. Picture a surgeon performing emergency procedures during a blackout, her hands steady under flickering flashlight, because she'd trained for this scenario in her mind 100 times before. The outer world may crumble, but within the citadel, choice remains. Consider a story from the early days of the pandemic. A nurse quarantined in her garage to protect her family, spending nights on a makeshift cot. Outside, sirens wailed and headlines screamed crisis, but in the silence between shifts, she'd close her eyes and visualize her grandmother's kitchen, the smell of rosemary bread, the sound of laughter over checkers. That mental sanctuary didn't change her circumstances, but it anchored her to something unshakable. Marcus would have recognized this immediately. You can retreat into yourself anytime. No place is more tranquil than the soul, especially when it carries resources for contentment within. The citadel isn't built from denial. It's constructed through deliberate practice, small moments where you reclaim your attention from the storm. A CEO facing bankruptcy might find it in the rhythm of chopping vegetables, focusing only on the knives glide through onion layers. A student awaiting exam results might discover it tracing the branches of an oak tree outside their window, each limb a reminder that some things grow slowly, regardless of human urgency. Where's your citadel? Maybe it's the memory of a childhood bookshelf where you first fell in love with stories. The feeling of your breath sinking with ocean waves during a beach walk. Or even something as simple as the weight of a pen in your hand as you journal. The form doesn't matter. What matters is that it's inviolable. Not because life won't try to invade, but because you've fortified the gates with presence. Modern neuroscience hints at why this works. When we immerse ourselves in sensory-rich mental imagery, the brain releases many of the same calming chemicals as if we were physically there. The Stoics didn't have fMRI scans, but they knew this truth in their bones. Epictetus, who endured slavery, taught his students, build a small room within yourself where you can return and say, "Here I am whole." That room might hold the scent of rain on pavement after a drought, or the melody of a song your loved one hums off-key. Its power lies not in perfection, but in familiarity, a touchstone when the world feels foreign. Your turn, close your eyes and map your citadel's architecture. What textures steady you? Whose voice echoes there? The answers won't shield you from pain. No fortress does, but they'll remind you that sanctuary isn't a place out there. It's the space you carve between stimulus and response, where even in lockdown, you're never truly trapped. As Marcus wrote, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Paint yours with whatever helps you remember through siege or stillness who you are beneath the noise. Chrysippus, one of Stoicism's founding thinkers, supposedly died from laughing too hard at his own joke, watching a drunk donkey try to eat figs. Whether the story's true or just philosophical folklore, it captures a profound truth. Humor isn't just entertainment, it's armor. The Stoics didn't see laughter as escapism, but as a way to disarm life's blows. Imagine losing your job and, instead of spiraling into shame, making a darkly funny toast at your own pink slip party. That's not denial, it's defiance. By finding the absurdity in adversity, you strip it of its power to define you. Consider the employee laid off after a decade of loyalty. One version of the story goes, "They betrayed me." The Stoic rewrite, "I've been promoted to CEO of my own time." The facts haven't changed, but the frame has. Psychologists call this cognitive reappraisal, and it's backed by studies showing humor reduces stress hormones. When the philosopher Cleans was mocked for hauling water to pay for lessons, he joked the work built his shoulders, turning ridicule into a badge of dedication. This isn't about forced positivity or toxic grin and bear-it attitudes. Real Stoic humor has teeth. It's the cancer patient quipping, "At least I'll never need dentures," or the flooded homeowner posting a lakefront property sign in their soggy living room. The laughter doesn't erase the pain, it just refuses to let pain have the final word. Marcus Aurelius hinted at this when he wrote, "The object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding yourself in the ranks of the insane." Sometimes the sanest response to chaos is a wry smile. Think of the last time you tripped in public. In the moment, it felt catastrophic until you laughed and realized no one cared. Now scale that up: the botched presentation, future cocktail party material, the dating app ghosting, a hilarious mismatch revealed. Even profound grief often carries moments of unexpected levity, stories about the departed that start with tears and end with laughter. These aren't contradictions, they're proof that joy and sorrow can coexist. Your challenge today: pick one current frustration and brainstorm its sitcom version. Maybe your car breaking down becomes a slapstick scene with a clown mechanic, the rude customer service call, a stand-up bit waiting to happen. As Chrysippus might have said between giggles, the donkey still gets the figs, but you get to keep your soul. Seneca once wrote a letter that strikes like lightning across the centuries. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Then he drops the counterintuitive truth: life is long if you know how to use it. Picture two people given identical clay. One molds it haphazardly until the pile collapses. The other sculpts with intention, creating something enduring. The clay isn't the problem, the hands are. modern life bombards us with the illusion of busyness as productivity. We wear exhaustion like a badge of honor, mistaking motion for progress. But the Stoics measured life not in hours but in attention. A single morning spent fully present with a child contains more vitality than months of distracted scrolling. Consider the executive who cancels family dinners for late meetings, only to realize too late that promotions don't warm deathbeds. Contrast this with the artist who guards 2 sacred hours each morning for creative work before the world's demands intrude. Both have the same 24 hours. One trades them for external validation, the other invests them in legacy. Seneca observed this dichotomy in ancient Rome. People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful. The meeting that could have been an email, the hour lost to social media envy, the grudges reherded like treasured artifacts, these are the silent thieves of our days. Here's the piercing question Stoicism forces us to confront. What's your personal time waster disguised as necessity? For some, it's perfectionism rewriting emails 5 times to avoid imagined judgment. For others, it's compulsive news checking that leaves them informed but paralyzed. A recovering workaholic shared her revelation. I tracked my time and discovered I spent 3 hours weekly organizing files I never reopened. That's 156 hours a year, enough to write a novel or learn a language. The Stoics didn't advocate ruthless efficiency. They championed ruthless honesty about what truly merits our limited breath. Try this audit for 1 day. Jot down every activity in 30-minute blocks, then categorize them not as work or leisure, but as nourishing, obligatory, or draining. You'll likely find pockets of time siphoned by what Seneca called the luxury of the preoccupied, tasks that feel urgent but leave no meaningful residue. The goal isn't to eliminate all trivial joys, even Seneca enjoyed wine and gardens, but to spot the difference between chosen rejuvenation and mindless habit. A coffee savored slowly with a friend feeds the soul. The same coffee gulped while rage reading comment sections only empties it. Marcus Aurelius offered a mental shortcut. Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? Not productive, not impressive, necessary. Like pruning a rose bush, cutting the superfluous isn't destruction, it's devotion to what wants to bloom. Your time isn't slipping away, you're handing it out piece by piece. The Stoic remedy: hold each moment like a gold coin, spendable, but only on what makes the transaction worthwhile. Your mind is like a courtroom, and every thought that enters demands a verdict. But how often do you actually cross-examine the evidence? This is the Stoic discipline of assent, a practice Epictetus called guarding the citadel of the mind. It's not about suppressing thoughts, but about becoming the gatekeeper who decides which ones deserve your belief. Imagine standing at a border checkpoint where every idea must present its passport before gaining entry. Some thoughts arrive dressed in convincing uniforms. You're not qualified for this promotion, or everyone will notice if you fail. But when you inspect their credentials, you find they're carrying forged documents. Take imposter syndrome. That voice whispering you only got here by luck wears the disguise of humility. But look closer, whose standards is it using? Who decided what qualified looks like? A surgeon shared how this practice transformed her confidence. Before a complex procedure, I'd hear you're going to mess up. Instead of fighting it, I'd ask, what's the proof? My residency hours, the successful surgeries last month, the thought couldn't produce evidence, so I revoked its visa. That's the discipline of assent in action, not denying doubt, but refusing to let it vote on your decisions. Epictetus drilled this with his students. Don't let the force of an impression carry you away. Say to it, show me your evidence. He knew thoughts are like salespeople, some offer value, others push faulty goods. The anxious mind might insist this presentation will be a disaster, but the Stoic asks, is that a fact or a fear? The difference changes everything. Modern psychology confirms this. Cognitive behavioral therapy mirrors Stoic assent by teaching patients to challenge automatic negative thoughts. Here's your challenge. Identify one recurring thought that narrows your life. I'm bad at networking, or I'll never be organized. Now put it on trial. What's the earliest memory feeding this belief? Would you let a friend speak to themselves this way? As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the things you think about determine the quality of your mind. Your thoughts don't own you, they're tenants. And you get to decide who stays. Standing in a supermarket aisle paralyzed by 40 types of olive oil, extra virgin, cold-pressed, organic, infused, you're not just choosing a condiment. You're battling a modern epidemic the Stoics predicted 2 millennia ago. Seneca saw it coming. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. He wrote, observing how abundance doesn't liberate, it paralyzes. Modern psychology calls this decision fatigue. The mental drain of endless options depletes willpower, leaving us exhausted long before dinner. Yet Stoicism offers a radical antidote, the art of satisficing, a blend of satisfy and suffice where good enough isn't settling, it's strategic liberation. Consider the wardrobe of Marcus Aurelius. As Emperor of Rome, he could have draped himself in silks, yet he wore the same plain cloak daily, not from austerity, but from clarity. Every unchosen outfit represented preserved mental bandwidth for weightier decisions. Fast forward to today, the average adult makes 35,000 choices daily, from podcast playlists to retirement plans. A Silicon Valley CEO shared how adopting Stoic simplicity transformed his leadership. I wear identical black T-shirts, eat the same breakfast, and delegate minor decisions. The brainpower I saved launched our most innovative product. This isn't about monotony, it's about creating white space for what truly demands your discernment. The paradox: more options don't multiply joy, they dilute it. Psychologist Barry Schwartz's JAM study proved this. Shoppers presented with 6 varieties were 10 times more likely to purchase than those facing 24. Overchoice doesn't expand freedom, it breeds regret. The Stoics reframed this with their preferred indifference principle. Prefer organic olive oil if available, but remain equally content with the basic brand. Your happiness isn't hostage to the perfect choice because perfection is a phantom. As Seneca quipped, to be everywhere is to be nowhere, a truth echoed in our fragmented attention. Here's the litmus test. What decision haunts your week? Maybe it's the hours spent comparing smartwatches or the mental gymnastics over dinner reservations. Now apply the Stoic triage. Does this choice align with my core values? If not, impose arbitrary constraints. Set a 2-minute timer for trivial picks or adopt a default option for recurring decisions. A surgeon I know orders the same hospital lunch daily. When lives are in my hands, I can't afford to waste neurons on sandwiches. The ultimate freedom isn't infinite choice, it's the courage to define enough. Picture 2 gardeners. One obsesses over every possible rose variety, paralyzed by hypothetical blooms. The other plants 3 reliable varieties and spends evenings actually smelling them. Today, identify one arena where you've conflated abundance with happiness, your streaming queue, workout routine, even your goals list, and slash the options ruthlessly. As Seneca reminded Lucilius, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. Your richest life might just lie on the other side of less. How do you want to be remembered? Not in the vague, distant sense of obituaries and eulogies, but in the quiet moments when someone who knew you thinks of your name. What feeling lingers? What imprint did you leave? This is the heart of the Stoic legacy mindset, where daily choices become brushstrokes on the canvas of your enduring influence. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire yet obsessed over his moral fiber, wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good person should be one." Notice he didn't say appear as one. The distinction is everything. Legacy isn't crafted through performative acts or grand gestures, but through the consistency of character when no one's watching. Consider two neighbors. One hosts lavish block parties, posting photos of charity donations, yet snaps at service workers when the spotlight fades. The other picks up litter on morning walks without fanfare, remembers mail carriers' names, and listens more than they speak. Decades later, which present still warms the neighborhood's collective memory, the Stoics measured legacy not in monuments or wealth, but in the subtle echoes of how you made others feel. Seneca captured this in a letter. What we leave behind isn't what's engraved on stone monuments, but what's woven into the lives of others. The legacy mindset flips temporal perspective. You stop asking, "What do I want today?" and start asking, "What story do I want my actions to tell?" A teacher shared how this reshaped her classroom. "I used to stress over test scores. Now I ask, will my students remember me as someone who believed in them or someone who stressed them out?" That shift isn't about outcomes, it's about alignment. The parent who prioritizes patience over being right, the leader who values integrity over shortcuts, these choices compound into a narrative far louder than any resume bullet point. Marcus Aurelius faced this daily. As emperor, he could have indulged in tyranny or corruption, trusting history's judgment to fade. Instead, his private journals reveal a man auditing his own soul. When you've done well and another has benefited, why demand a third thing, recognition or reward, like a fool expecting interest on a gift? His legacy wasn't in military conquests, though he had many, but in modeling that power needn't corrode principle. Here's the challenge. Identify one small action today that plants a seed for the legacy you crave. Not a dramatic life overhaul, just a single stitch in the tapestry. Maybe it's replacing a complaint with gratitude when your partner cooks dinner, even if the meal's overcooked. Or choosing honesty in a negotiation when deception would go unnoticed. These moments feel insignificant, but the Stoics knew better. Like drops filling a bucket, they shape how the world remembers you long after you're gone. As Epictetus reminded his students, you aren't just building a life, you're writing the manual by which others will learn to live. Make it a text worth studying. So there you have it, 30 Stoic methods, each a tool forged in the fires of ancient wisdom, ready to be wielded in the chaos of modern life. But here's the secret the Stoics knew better than anyone. Inner strength isn't a trophy you win and display. It's a daily practice, like tending a fire. Sometimes you're feeding it with kindling, other times you're shielding it from the wind. You won't always get it right. Some days frustration will boil over or fear will creep in. That's not failure, that's the work. As Epictetus, the philosopher who turned his enslavement into a masterclass on freedom, reminded us, no great thing is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. If you tell me you desire a fig, I answer that there must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Maybe today you'll pause before reacting to a rude comment. Tomorrow, you might catch yourself clinging to comfort and choose a small hardship instead. Every time you zoom out with the view from above, or question an angry impression, or find gratitude in the mundane, you're not just surviving life's storms, you're learning to dance in the rain. The Stoics didn't promise a life without pain. They promised something far more powerful, the ability to meet pain with purpose. Now it's your turn. Don't try to master all 30 methods at once. That's like trying to drink the ocean. Start with one. Maybe it's the evening journal where you'll reflect on what went well and where you stumbled. Or perhaps it's the reserve clause, whispering fate permitting when plans go sideways. Whatever you choose, commit to it this week. Then come back and tell us what's your first tool. Drop it in the comments below, because the beautiful thing about Stoicism is this: it's not just a philosophy to study. It's a life to live, and yours starts